All right, I think I've got all the technology dialed in. Happy Friday, everybody. My ring goes flying off. Mary Jed Wisiak here, coming to you live from Holding the Hope Central in Battleground, Washington. Super excited to be here for you today. It's Friday, and I have to say that I'm starting to look forward to my Friday morning lives. As you know, the last few weeks I've been talking to you about, each Friday I talk to you about a module of the CARES Toolkit. Now, the CARES Toolkit, and you go to carestoolkit.com. Pretty easy. It's called CARES Toolkit Essential Skills for Peer Supporters. And it is exactly that. It is an on-demand toolkit of 12 modules. Each module has about an hour's worth of video presentation. We recorded a workshop, and then lots of resources and tools and PDFs and links and things that you can then download on each topic. Stephanie Lane and I created this toolkit almost 2 years ago now. And when we created it, we thought it would be perfect for rural peers working in rural environments. It couldn't get away to go to trainings that needed some support, might find themselves isolated. And it is. But now with COVID, that's true for everyone. So the toolkit is good for everyone, especially those people who are just starting out. The other thing that I've found that it's really good for are supervisors who want to know what exactly we're supposed to do around boundaries. What is it that peers do, and how are peers different than clinical staff? And do peers need to know about suicide prevention? Yes. So there's lots of different things that the CARES Toolkit can offer. And I just love talking about it. So carestoolkit.com. And then we have a corporate version that gives you 5 logins. And with the corporate version, you also get 1 hour of coaching. Typically, it's from me, but it could also be from any one of our coaches that are as an expert on the subject that you need coaching in. So that is the CARES Toolkit. And I suppose you're wondering, what are you going to talk about this weekend, Mary? Well, I'm going to talk about documentation. Yes, I am. Now, I have never done documentation because I've never actually worked as a peer supporter. I am a peer supporter, and I've done lots of trainings for peer supporters, but I've never worked in a clinical setting as a peer supporter. And but I have been in trainings with Ann Ryder where she talks about how to do documentation. And funny, we should say that because in the month of April, our monthly training is going to, no, wait, where are we? We're in April now. No, in the month of May, our May training is going to be on documentation. So if it's something that you're kind of weak in, Ann does the documentation workshop on the toolkit, and she's also going to do an expanded version for us in May. So I hope that you'll go to the Peer Support Training Center, click on Live Learnings, and register for that. Or you can also find it in our on-demand section. We have so many things. It's been so much fun lately for me to be able to call people up and say, hey, do you know what Holding the Hope has in store for you and your staff? We've just got so many cool things. And one of which is today, which is my Friday morning live. So tell me, how does documentation, what does that have to do with recovery? What does that have to do with anything? It has a lot to do with everything. Because in my life, I like to pick and choose what applies to me and what doesn't. And oftentimes I think I'm wrong because everything applies to me. All the rules apply to me, whether I like it or not. And as peer supporters, when we get jobs, I've heard people often talk about how the documentation is just stunning to some folks. They may not have, they may not spell very well. That's okay, right? A lot of people don't spell well. They may not, it's just something that's very different, and they didn't expect to have to do it. So even though peer support is a non-clinical intervention, we have to abide by the rules and regulations that are required by Medicaid or the people that keep the doors open, the funding streams. So you have to follow the rules. What? And you have to do it well. And so there's a way to do it. Here's the thing. Peer supporters are not clinical, so there's no way that peer supporters should be documenting medical necessity. I learned that from Anne. That's not something that peers do. What they do to those, they document their peer support intervention. Here's the other thing is that I love. It's really empowering to hear Anne talk about this training. But sometimes peer supporters will be documenting that they shared a portion of their story, and their bosses will say, "Well, you need to write in there what you shared," and the answer is, "No, you don't. No, you don't. It's none. It's that's your personal story." So it doesn't belong in somebody else's medical chart. So you just document that as part of your peer supporting, you supplied a relevant part of your story to provide encouragement. I love that. That made me happy. So here's what we know about peer supporters. Peer supporters are by design disruptors, right? We go in and we do things differently, and we bring in our personal experience. We talk about our lived experience. We use it as an asset that it is, and we document. And but then we got to go and we got to walk in the clinical world, and we have to do some clinical things, even though we're non-clinical. And documentation is one of those things that if you're working as a peer supporter, you have to do. You don't get to choose on that one. And so I just so relate to that. The petulant, bold, belligerent child in me so relates to not wanting to do documentation. But if you're also anything like me and you don't write it down the instant it happens, you forget, like big time, just forget. And so as we get older, that happens more often. So whatever it is that you need to do to make sure that you do a good job with that, I think that it's part of recovery is to do the best we can in any situation we're in. And if there are barriers, then you can ask for accommodations on that, and you can get some support and some training and some help, maybe some mentorship around how to do the what is a golden thread and how do you follow it. And there's some things that you can do to improve your skills on this, and I really hope that that you do that, because that's what being in recovery is. It is not a stagnant thing. Being in recovery requires us to get better all the time at everything we do. It requires us to take risks, to ask for help. It requires us to do our best, to step up and say, I don't really want to do this, but I'm going to do it because I love my job. And this is part of helping other people. Right. So eventually, if you can kind of flip it and say, I love to do this, this is awesome. I'm getting so good at this. And use it as a key performance indicator as to just how much you're growing. Use it as a benchmark as to just how hard you're working. And you can use it as a goal in your regular, if you're having regular supervision, which you could have that as a goal that you just really want to get better and better and better at documentation. Um, Writing is one of those things that is different for everybody, and it takes practice. None of us are perfect when we write the first time. My very first F ever in school was on a handwriting exam, because I'm not kidding you now. I did not think handwriting counted. I had all the answers. I knew all the answers, and I would write all the answers, but I didn't execute it perfectly. Like, I knew that there was a little ridge in the top of the R, and I knew that the O had a little loop, and that the big O had a big loop. Cursive, we're talking now. And I knew all that, but I just finished it really quickly and handed it in and got an F. I was shocked. I was in the third grade. I was shocked, absolutely shocked. So, handwriting counts, execution counts in our lives, that what we know stuff, but how do we do stuff? And I think that's where, for me, my recovery really hits the road, is what do I know versus how do I do it? What do I do? Um, yeah, that's just life. What are you doing today? What do you know, and what are you doing, and why are you doing it, and are you doing it with intention? Are you doing it with care? Are you doing it with skill, or are you just doing it to get it over with? And I think that if we bring this same intention and care and skill to the tedious details of our job as we do to the interactions with the people part of our job, then you can't go wrong. You just can't go wrong. So, as I said, I'm not an expert on documentation, but I am an expert on being a brat. And so I can tell you how, if I don't want to do something, I'll find a million other things to do instead of that. And I would, don't be like me. And absolutely, if you use whatever tricks are offered to you, is with regards to what works at your place of employment around getting your documentation done and getting it done in a timely way and getting it done in a way that everybody gets paid. Because that's what has to happen if you want to keep your job, because it's always important to keep your job. And that's what has to happen if we want to keep the front doors open. We get to be a part of this landscape of services that people are able to access. And part of that means that we have to play by the rules. So that's what's happening in my world. Um, what's going on with me this weekend? It's Easter, right? I totally spaced it. It's Easter, and my son called me and was like, "You want to have breakfast?" And so that's what I'm doing, and that's going to be fun. So I have to go and buy some appropriate Easter candies for 40-year-old. Yes, there will be candy because that is important. It doesn't matter how old you are. An Easter basket from your mom is important. So I guess we're going to go out in public. Kind of scared that we're going to do it. Going to put on my mask and do it, and and hopefully everything will be okay. I think it will. We've all been super careful, and we're going to continue to be. So I wish you, if you are of the persuasion that you celebrate Easter, I wish you a happy and blessed Easter. If you are not of that persuasion, I wish you a deliciously sunshine spring and all things spring. I hope you have a spring in your step and a spring in your day. I'm probably going to do some dirt digging in the dirt this weekend because it's supposed to be a little bit nice. So that'll be good. And just connecting with friends and doing some things. It's so fantastic to see blue skies and to know that the days are getting longer and the birds are singing, and it makes me happy. Oh, yeah, yeah, it makes me happy. So that's what's happening in my world. And I hope that you have a fantastic weekend. Do the things you know you have to do because it's important that you do them, right? And do everything that you do to the best of your ability and with confidence because you know what you're doing, and what you're doing is super important. So you know what to do. Stay hopeful, everybody. Bye.